Hey everyone, this is Pallavi, and today we are diving into the 22nd game from the book The Most Instructive Games of Chess Ever Played by Irving Chernev. This one is called, the title is Systematic Strangulation, a classic game played between Tarrasch and Showalter in Vienna in 1898, and the opening played was the Hungarian defense. This is a game with no flashy combinations, just pure strategy. White slowly strangles black's position, move by move, without a single blunder to exploit. That Tarrasch believed was the highest triumph of chess. In this positional masterpiece, he doesn't let Showalter breathe, restricting development, shutting down counterplay, and squeezing until there's nothing left. There are combinations in the notes, but the beauty lies in what didn't happen because Showalter played just well enough to survive for a while. Let's dive in. So white started with e4 and then black played e5, knight f3, developing towards the center, and then knight to c6. Bishop c4, bishop e7. The usual move is bishop to c5, entering the Gyoko piano, but black steers away to avoid Tarrasch's preparation. d4. And now black played d6. This blocks the king's bishop, but e takes d4 would give up the center. Now white replied with d5, attacking the knight on c6. Knight to b8. One might expect knight c3, standard development, but Tarrasch chooses to preserve his e4 d5 pawn chain, which restricts black, even if it means moving the same piece twice in the opening. So white played bishop d3. The first principle of attack says Rubinstein, don't let the opponent develop. So white's move, this bishop d3 move, stops black's f5 and prepares c4 against c6. If black recaptures with c takes d5, then white can play c takes d5 while keeping the strong central pawn structure intact. Now black played knight f6, c4, kingside castle, and then h3. Another prophylactic move, it stops bishop to g4, forcing the bishop to d7 instead, and prepares g4 to counter black's plan of knight e8 and followed by f5. Now black replied c6, knight c3, and then knight a6. Black hopes for counterplay with knight c5 and a5, aiming to anchor the knight on a strong outpost that's hard to dislodge. Now bishop e3. The plan is shut down. Knight c5 allows bishop takes c5, d takes c5, and then knight takes e5, and white wins a pawn. Now black played knight c7. Kingside castle, knight f e8. Black aims to break free with f5, preparing it with g6 and knight g7. But Tarrasch is already working to make sure that never happens. White played queen c2, placing the queen behind the bishop and controlling the f5 square. C takes d5, c takes d5. Clearly the correct recapture because e takes d5 would let black play f5 immediately. Now g6. Black prepares f5 either next or after the knight supports from g7. How should white restrain the f pawn? Bishop h6. This rook threat forces the knight to g7, but once there, it's pinned. its support of the f pawn becomes useless. So knight g7 and now g4. This move ends any hope of f5. Now white looks to convert his space advantage into something tangible. Now black played knight ce8, king to h2, king h8 and then rook g1. White, ever cautious, places his rook on the g file ready to capitalize if black manages to play f5 and the file opens. Now black played bishop d7, rook g2 and then rook to c8, rook ag1, doubling up the rooks on the king side. b6. Good moves are running out. This one weakens the a6, b5, c6 squares. Tarrasch notes this and will target those weak light squares later. For now, he aims to tighten the king side with knight e1, f4 and then f5, but playing knight e1 immediately allows bishop g5, trading bishops and easing black's position. So first a preparatory move, which is queen to d2. With g5 now covered by the queen and the bishop, white can safely move the knight, freeing the f pawn to advance. Now knight f6, knight e1, knight to g8 and then bishop to e3. g5. This stops f4 but at a high cost. The f5 square weakens and one of white's knights will likely occupy it. Plus, the g5 pawn blocks black's king's bishop, severely limiting its activity. Knight f3. With f4 no longer possible, the knight returns to the attack. f6, h4 and now black played h6. This and the previous move only weakened black's white squares further, suffocating his pieces and leaving them with even less mobility. After g takes h4 and then knight takes h4 followed by knight f5, black's position becomes utterly unappealing. Now white played rook h1, king h7. The king opts to flee rather than risk facing the h file being opened against him. King g1, king g6 and then knight h2. The knight heads for f5, moving its way through f1 and then g3 and then to f5. Rook c7, knight f1, queen c8. A double attack on white's g pawn, black's first real threat in the game. Queen e2. This method of protecting the g pawn is better than the natural f3. The f3 square must remain open for the piece mobility, not blocked by a pawn. Now black played king f7, bishop a6 attacking the queen, queen b8 and now knight b5. This attack on the rook with no safe squares forces an exchange of bishop for knight. So bishop takes b5, bishop takes b5 and the piece exchange highlights key features of the position. Number one, the loss of black's queen bishop accentuates the weakness of black's white squares, now open for Tarrasch's pieces. Number two, black's remaining bishop is trapped by pawns on black squares. The black king is trapped. Number three, the black king is trapped, unable to escape to e8. Then number four, white enjoys two active bishops, while black's knights are ineffective. Now, black played rook fc8, h takes g5, h takes g5 and now white played a good move, bishop to c6, block it. The rooks are doubled on the file but they are powerless to use it. Bishop f8, queen f3 threatens to capture the g pawn. Rook takes c6, a desperate move with no good replies. So if here instead of rook takes c6, king to g6, to protect the g pawn leads to rook gh2, knight e7, and then rook h6 check, king f7, and then queen takes f6 check, rook king g8 and rook h8 checkmate. Alternatively, if after rook gh2 then rook to d8, then rook h8, rook bishop e7, and then rook 1 h7 threatens queen f5 check, knight takes f5, and then g takes f5 is checkmate. Now if queen c8, then rook takes g7 check, king takes g7, queen h3, king f8, queen h6 check, king f7, and rook h7 is a checkmate. So after queen f3, black played rook takes c6, d takes c6, and now knight e6, rook h7 check, bishop g7. Now instead king e8, then queen f5 attacking the knight, knight c5, queen g6 check, king d8, queen takes g8, king e8, queen f7 check, king d8, and queen takes f8, it's a checkmate. So after rook h7 check, bishop g7, then knight g3. Then black captured rook takes c6, and now white played knight f5. Finally the knight reaches its ideal square. Queen to c8. Now white played rook gh2, doubling up the rook on h file, knight e7. If instead king g6, then bishop takes g5, f takes g5, then knight e7 check, knight takes e7, rook to h6 check, bishop takes rook, and then queen f7 is a checkmate. If after bishop takes g5, f takes g5, and then knight h4 check, and then king h7, queen f5 check, king h8, knight g6 check, checkmate. Also after bishop takes g5, if knight captures g5, then rook takes g7 is a checkmate. So after rook gh2, black played knight e7, and then white captured knight takes g7, knight takes g7, and then bishop takes g5, threatening queen takes f6 check, and a checkmate in the next move, as well as bishop h6 winning the knight. Now black played queen e6. Showalter made this move and resigned without waiting for a reply. Tarrasch could have simply played bishop h6, or the more intriguing bishop takes f6. Then queen takes f6, rook takes g7 check, and now if king takes g7, then rook h7 check, king g6, rook h6 check, and wins the queen. And after rook takes g7 check, if king e6, then rook takes e7 check, king takes e7, rook h7 check, and then king e6, and then queen b3 check, d5, queen takes d5 is a checkmate. So after queen e6, here black resigned. So let's look at some key lessons learned from this game. Number 1, winning without tactics. Tarrasch won by steadily restricting black's position, not through flashy combinations. Number 2, central pawn chain control. The e4 d5 chain anchored white's grip on the center and limited black's counterplay. Number 3, preventing opponent's plan. Moves like bishop g5 and rook h2 were aimed at stopping f5 before it could happen. Number 4, prophylactic thinking. Tarrasch prepared each step, never rushing, always preventing threats before executing plans. Number 5, exploiting color weaknesses. With the light squared bishop gone, Tarrasch dominated the weakened white square. Number 6. Piece coordination over activity. White's pieces worked in harmony while black's looked active but lacked purpose. Number 7. Sustained pressure without risk. Tarrasch built up an advantage without ever giving Showalter counter chances. Number 8. Controlled kingside expansion. The knight e1, g3, f5 route showed how to expand on one side without overextending. And number 9, smooth transition from positional edge to tactical finish. Once black was paralyzed, Tarrasch calmly converted his space into a winning attack. Thank you for watching. I hope you found the lesson clear and picked up something useful. If you like the video, don't forget to hit like, drop a comment, share it around, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.